You see, you're dealing with infinite, you're dealing with an infinite supply. And we want to know that there is an infinite supply. Now, you're in a company that has demonstrated this probably about as well as any company I've ever seen in all the years I've been in this business. I've been in it a long time. I started to study it. I started to study this book in 1961. This is Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich. And I got this book in 1968. And it was around 1967 that I started to work in this field. I went to work with Earl Nightingale and Lloyd Conant in 1968, and that's when Lloyd gave me this book. And so I've studied these two books for a long, long time, let's say over 50 years. And I've become very familiar with it. And just reading it and memorizing it doesn't do you any good. You've got to act on the ideas. You've got to put them into action. Now, you have a phenomenal system that you're involved in. There is all kinds of leadership that is demonstrated that they're capable of doing absolutely phenomenal things. And then they go out and they do phenomenal things. Now, if they can, you can. You've got potential beyond the scope of your imagination. You could not get your imagination to take you where you're capable of going. You wouldn't, because there's limits on how far you can do that, because there's a lack of awareness. Now, as you study, you expand your level of awareness, and then, of course, you can see how you can go further. But there's no end to where you can go and what you can do. I want you to look at a few of the leaders in the company, the ones that get up the front that are the chairmen that are way up in the big, big numbers, not chairman 100, but way up in the thousands. Well, how did they get there? What did they do? Are they really that much smarter than anybody else? I don't think so. Now, there's some people that have just entered and they're not going to go anywhere. There's a certain element of society that operates much like their pets. They're still in an animalistic state of consciousness. The other morning, I was sitting having a cup of coffee with my wife, and she said, "Look at this." And there was a great big raccoon walked across the porch, right, just outside the kitchen door. It was a big one. And she said, "You want to go out there, don't be careful." I said, "He's afraid of me, probably more than I'm afraid of him." And that raccoon would take off and go where it goes. Now, the difference between the raccoon and me is I can create my own environment, the raccoon cannot. I remember one day I come out the back door and there was a beautiful fox. Gorgeous looking animal. They're tall, long legs. There was a fox standing beside our barbecue. He just stood there for a while. I stood and looked at him. He looked at me. And then gradually he just turned around and walked away. Now, what's the difference between that raccoon and the fox and you and I? Well, there's very little difference, to tell you the truth. The fox and the raccoon's body is made from exactly the same stuff as you and I are made from. They have 4 legs. We've got 4, but we use 2 as hands. The raccoon's pretty good at that too. They have a heart, they have lungs, they have sight, they can hear and see. The animals are very closely attached to us. In fact, we're part of the animalistic family. So where are we really different? Well, we're really different in the fact that we're totally disoriented in our environment. All the secrets to success. They're doing the right thing. They're going where they want to go. They're doing what they want to do. And they're using their God-given abilities, their faculties. And I was lost when I first started to read that book. I did not know which end was up. I was struggling. I was going nowhere. I was earning very poor money. I had a bad work record and I had a bad attitude. I didn't know that I had a bad attitude. I didn't even know what attitude was. And if somebody had told me, I probably wouldn't have understood it. And our attitude really makes a difference. It's our thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's the composite of all 3. But at any rate, I started to study that book, and I decided I was going to do what the book said, and I was going to do what the man said that gave me the book. And when I started to do that and follow their direction to the letter, everything started to happen in a very positive way. Now, you are capable of doing exactly the same thing. You are capable of talking to someone that's earning millions of dollars and then ask them, what should I do? And do exactly what they tell you. Exactly. Now, I will guarantee you 90-some% of the very successful people are forever getting to know themselves better. They're forever studying who they are, what makes them tick, why they're doing what they're doing, and why they don't do many of the things they want to do. Now let's come back to you and me and the raccoon or the fox, the animals. What separates us? Well, they're completely at home because they blend in. We're totally disoriented. We've been given the higher faculties that enable us to create our own environment. That's how your company, IAM, was created, the Academy. It was created in a man's mind. Okay? Your future is going to be created in your mind. What is it going to be like? You see, you've got these higher faculties, but most people live much the same as the animals. They go by what they see, hear, smell, taste, and touch. They're letting the outside world dictate where they're going to go and what they're going to do. They let their bank account tell them where they're at insofar as wealth is concerned. That's the wrong way to go about it. We want to tell the bank account. We want to decide where we're going to go. We want to know what our higher faculties are. Now, you might ask yourself, do you know what they are? Do you know what separates you from all of the rest of the animal kingdom? Because most people don't. Now, I can remember when I first started to study this, I had absolutely no idea about this information. Well, I'm going to tell you, you have higher faculties. You have perception. You have the will. You have imagination, memory, intuition, and reason. Now, those faculties enable you to create whatever kind of life you want. I'm living exactly where I want to live. I love it here. I've lived here for a number of years. I'll probably live here until I move on to a higher calling. But I love it here. I think everybody should live where they really want to live. And then I think they should be doing exactly what they want to do. I was talking to my business partner this morning, Sandy Gallagher, and she was talking about her niece who's just graduating from university. And I said, you know, you could be such an enormous influence on her. Because I said, you're such a free spirit and you're so creative and you're so dynamic and you're creating a beautiful life. You could show her to do how to do exactly the same thing. Great opportunity. And we got talking about that for a while. Well, I want to talk to you about these higher faculties. In one of these shows that I was on this week, where I was being interviewed, one of them, Mark Lack was his name. And Mark said to me, Bob, let's suppose somebody's watching this, they've lost their job, and they're pretty despondent, they really don't know what to do. He said, what should they do? And I said, well, I can tell you what I would do. I don't know what they should do, but what I would do when I get over the shock of the tremendous change in my situation in life, I would sit down and I would try and figure out what's good about it. You see, everything in life, there's something good and there's something bad. Now, most people just go by what they see and what they perceive is at the time. And so they look at what's wrong and they look at the people dying and the ones that are sick and the ones that have no money and the ones that are losing. I said, that's not going to do you any good doing that. I said, we've got the ability to sit down and look at it from a different point of view. My good friend Wayne Dyer put it very well. He said, when you change the way you look at something, what you look at is going to change. I want you to write down the word perception. Perception. It's a word you're familiar with. I don't know how much you use it, but I'm going to tell you what I suggested to Mark Lack, what his audience should do. What we should do is say, I am going to work on my perception of this situation. Because the truth is, it is neither bad nor good. It just is. It's my thinking that determines whether it's going to be bad or good. Now think about this for a moment. What's going on is neither bad nor good. See, the law of polarity decrees everything has an opposite. Nothing's big or nothing's small. Nothing's good, nothing's bad. Everything just is, and then we make it what it is. It's how we look at it. It's how we perceive it. So I said, if we would take a look at the situation and say, let me see, I've lost my job, I'm in a tight spot, I could look at this as a start over point. I'm going to start over. I'm going to study, I'm going to start to understand who I am. And I'm really going to make things happen in a very big way. I could see it as a start over point, a fresh start. And then stop and think, how can I do this? I was talking to a lady on the phone this morning, and she was in a very bad spot. She phoned, she was very upset, she was crying, and she's a good friend, and she wanted to know if I would help her. So I chatted with her for a little bit, and I said, listen, what you've got to do, and she got to calm down a little bit. I said, I want you to take and write out what you think your problem is. Write out what the challenge is, and write it out in as clear an information as you can get it. I said, take your pen and sit down and write down the challenge that you're facing. Now, after you get it written down, put it in the center of a table. But you've got to write it so clear that if I picked up and looked at it, I would have the same picture in my mind as you've got in yours. Don't write pages, as short as you can. Write it out. And then set it in the center of the table and go and sit on the side of the table and look at it. And say, is that problem in me or is it on the table? Is the problem in me or is it on the table? And you keep working at it until you get it out of you and get it on the table. As long as you're emotionally involved in the problem, you're never going to solve it. You got to get it outside of you and look at it like a stranger might. Now that's the beautiful thing about being human and having a mental concept, a higher faculty called perception. You cannot change the conditions or circumstance of anything that's going on in your life, but you can change your perception of them. You can look at it different. And I said, when you've looked at it for a little while like that, go sit on the other side of the table and look at it again and say, how would Bob Proctor look at this? How would Proctor look at it? What would be his perception of this situation? And you played with it that way for a little while, go sit somewhere else and say, how would Chris Terry look at this? Go sit somewhere else. How would Alex Morton look at this? Go sit somewhere else. How would Dave Emenetti look at this? Do you see, the beautiful part about having this mental faculty of perception, it gives us the ability to change the way things appear. You can change your perception of it. And when you change your perception, everything in your life begins to change. Now, do you know that many people don't know that? They just, the way it's presented, that's the way it is. Can't be any other way. It is absolutely terrible. People dying, people getting sick. Listen, people have always been dying, and people are always going to be dying. Now, sometimes there's more dying at one time than another, but we're all going to go. Dying is not necessarily a bad thing. It's much the same as birth. It's called a transition. You move into the body, you'll move out of your body. This is not me. This is not Bob Proctor. This is Bob's body. This is Bob's voice that you're listening to, Bob's hands. You never heard anybody say, am hand, am body, am head. No, we say my head, my hand, my body, my situation will change your perception of your situation. Now, when you do that and you get it out of your head and get it on a piece of paper on the table, I guarantee you something that was big all of a sudden become very small. You've taken the problem and shrunk it. You can do that with perception. The raccoon cannot do that. The raccoon cannot do that. The fox cannot do that. But you and I can. Now let's think of another one of our higher faculties. Because through the proper use of these faculties, it's going to take you right to the top of the chairman's seat. It'll take you right up there where you can earn literally millions of dollars. It's all here waiting for you, but it ain't going to happen by accident. It's going to happen when you begin to use what you've got. And you are God's highest form of creation. You have been blessed with talent and ability that would blow your mind. Perception. Burn it into your mind. And it doesn't matter how something looks. That's my perception of it. Shift your perception. It's like Wayne said, when you change the way you look at something, what you look at is going to change. Now what's another one? Another one is memory. Memory. Do you know there's no such thing as a bad memory? Now I'll run through them all again. I said there was perception, the will, reason, imagination, intuition, memory. And memory, there's no such thing as a bad memory. Do you know that everyone has a perfect memory? A perfect memory. Remember Jerry Lucas? He was in business with, he was a pro basketball player one time. He was in business with a friend of mine, Harry Lorraine, who had the best trained memory in the world. And Lucas, let's say this was a Bible, looks like one. The Bible is actually not a book. A Bible is a library. I don't know if you knew that. There's 66 books in the Bible. But at any rate, he was teaching people, Lucas was, to memorize the Bible. Memorize the whole Bible. I remember asking one time, how long you remembered something? Well, he said, till I want to forget it. See, you have a perfect memory, an absolutely perfect memory. There's no such thing as a bad memory. Most people have weak memories, same as they have perception that's fixed, never changes it, just the way you look at it, that's the way it is, never thinking they can change it. Memory is a magnificent tool. We had a psychiatrist, Abdullah, who came to the Matrix. It's a 6-day program that we run in our company. And he came to the Matrix. He was from Saudi Arabia. He was a psychiatrist, and he was teaching people over there to memorize the Quran. Now, most people can't even conceive reading the Quran or reading the Bible. Now, there's some people who read the Bible every day. They read the Quran every day, or the Bhagavad Gita, whatever it is. These religious books, but they're so voluminous. I mean, there's so much in them. He was teaching them to memorize it. Now, how do you do that? We have a perfect memory. Remember Harry Lorraine? I was having him come into Toronto to do a seminar one time, and we had about 3,000 tickets sold to it. It was in the convention center in downtown Toronto, and he was flying in from New York. Now it's about a 1-hour flight from New York to Toronto. At the airport, he picked up, it was either Time or Newsweek, one of the weekly magazines. He memorized it flying into Toronto from New York in 1 hour, memorized the whole magazine. Then he took, when he got here, and he cut the spine off the magazine and took and had he had taken a pen, a black marker, and he had put in a big number of the page. It was 6, big 6 in the middle of the page. 26, a big 26 in the middle of the page with the black marker. Then he cut the spine off, and he had all these pages loose and had them duplicated. He had thousands of them made. When anybody came in the hall, they got one of the pages. He went and stood by one of the doors. Now, there was multiple doors, but he stood by one, and he met as many people as he could. And he introduced himself to them. When he got up to do his part at the show that we were putting on, he said, anybody that I met at the door, would you stand up? And he pointed to them, told them what their name was, and then they'd sit down, and one after another. Hundreds of people. Told them what their name was. Now, if it was a difficult name to pronounce, he spelled it. Then he had people at random, just say page 18, and they would start reading the page and stop. He would pick up where they left off. Perfect memory. Perfectly developed memory. Now, I have a perfect memory, and you have too, but you probably wouldn't be able to do that because we've never developed our memory to that point. Now, how do you develop a memory? How do you develop your body? Through exercise. You exercise it. That's exactly how you do it. So as you exercise your memory, it gets stronger. It gets better. Just the same as if you're exercising your body, it gets stronger. It takes time. It takes a system. And to do that, that takes a decision. You see, we're so capable, and yet we don't do it. We have perfect perception. We have a perfect memory. Do you know that you've been given the mental faculties that you could conquer this business? You can have business all over the world. There's nowhere that you cannot have business. IM Academy operates all over the world. Hundreds of thousands of people. You can show every one of them how to increase life. That's what Waddles was talking about in The Science of Getting Rich. He said, get in the practice of leaving everybody you meet with the impression of increase. Make them feel better because you were there. Memory and perception. Now what's another one? Another one is the will. The will. If you have not decided where you're going in this company, to what level are you going, I would suggest you do that before you go to bed tonight. You don't have to have any knowledge of how you're going to get there. Now, since the chairman operated a lot more money, I would go right to the top of the chairman rank and say, that's where I'm going. Now, you may not know how to get there. In fact, you might think you can't get there. Come here. Come here a minute. Understand this. Ed Hillary did not know how to get to the top of Mount Everest until after he got there. The Wright brothers did not know how to get the plane off the ground until after they got it off the ground. You do not have to know how you're going to get to where you're going. You only have to know you're going to get there. And if you follow right rules, you're going to get there. Listen to these leaders. When they get up the front and say, this is what I did, burn it into your mind. Make up your mind that's what you're going to do. And you're quite capable of doing that. You really are. The will. You build the picture and you hold the picture. You hold the picture with your will. I got on a plane many years ago in Phoenix. I was flying to Toronto. I had to go through New York. And I was sitting in 1B. That's the first seat on the plane. A man got on the plane and he sat down in 2A, right behind me, crisscross. And we just got the plane in the air and he reached over and tapped me on the shoulder. He said, I think you could help me. I said, well, that's interesting. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a pro golfer. He said, I'm on my way to New York to play in the FedEx. I said, I could probably help you a lot. Well, he and I became good friends. And I did help him a lot. He had been watching The Secret prior to that, and he recognized me. And I got to know him fairly well, and then I went out on tour with him. I went around a couple of tournaments. I remember going in the clubhouse where all the pros are, you know. And he said, this is where more American royalty hang out. And I'm going to tell you, the pro golfers are American royalty. But at any rate, we were, I had followed him around on the tour that he was on. And we were in the hotel room sitting talking in the evening. And he said, teach me a real good lesson. So I said, okay. So I took my pen and I went and I put a little dot on the wall opposite to where he was sitting. And I said, I want you to stare for the next 15 minutes. I want you to stare at that dot. Just stare at the dot. Now he said, every time your mind wanders, and it's going to wander, make no mistake about it, your mind will wander. Every time your mind wanders, bring it back to the dot. The will is the part of your mind that keeps you with one idea on the screen of the mind to the exclusion of all outside distractions. Most people have difficulty concentrating on anything for more than 2 or 3 seconds. And their mind's off here and there. They hear a siren going, or somebody turns some music on, or a little kid cries, or a dog barks, and that's where their mind's going. They're being controlled by what's going on outside. They are not controlling themselves from inside. Now, you've got a will. You get the picture of that chairman's position you want, and that's where you're going to go. And you keep that there, and that's what you think about. Now, I'll tell you what to do. Get a card, write it on your card. I have my goal written on a card. I carry it in my pocket. I've been doing that since the 21st of October, 1961. That's when a man named Ray Stanford gave me this book, and then he gave me a card. Now he said, I want you to sit down and decide what you want. And this was like a kid's game for me. It was like we were playing in a coloring book or something. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you can have anything you want. Well, of course, I didn't believe that. Anyone in the room could go right to the top of the chairman's list. You really can. But I didn't know that. I didn't believe that. So he got me dreaming, and I said, I'd like $25,000. Now, this is in 1961. This would be like you thinking of maybe getting $1 billion today. I mean, it was just totally out of my reach. I couldn't even imagine it. No, I said, you got to hold that idea on the screen of the mind. Well, I couldn't even get it to stay there at all because I didn't believe it. But he said, you keep that picture on the screen of the mind. Every time you put the card, you put your hand in your pocket and touch the card, what's happening is a light message is going screaming through the central nervous system. It strikes a group of cells in your brain, and the picture that's in those cells flash on the mind. Now, when you write on a card that you want to be chairman, whatever the number, you write that on the card, you have impregnated an image of that in your mind. It's sunk into a group of cells in your brain. Every time you touch the card, you activate those cells. Every time you think of the goal, you activate those cells. Now, the trick is to keep those cells activated as much as possible. You keep them at an increased amplitude of vibration. That puts you in the vibration and sets up the attractive force. But here's the key. The will enables you to hold that idea on the screen of your mind for a period of time. Now, at first, it may last a second or two. You can get that you can concentrate for a long time. It takes discipline. It takes practice. So you've got perception and you've got the will. Now, that's just two mental faculties. You've got memory. Now, these mental faculties are phenomenal, and they can be developed to an enormous degree. You got reason. Reason gives us the ability to choose. Reason gives us the ability to accept or reject. You know all this jazz that you're hearing on the news, it comes on to it'll come right on the screen of your phone. You don't have to accept that. You can reject it. Just say reject. Is it true? Probably a lot of it is. Is it going to help you? Is it going to improve the quality of your life? It probably isn't. So what the hell do you want to think of it for? Well, I don't know. Most people that are thinking about it don't even know why they do. There's a lot of people staying in, they're scared. They're scared they're going to catch a virus and die. They're going to die, they just don't know when. Are they going to die from the virus? Who knows? I know one thing, I can't cause it to go away. That's a condition or circumstance that's there. I can't get rid of it. Now think, I've got the ability to choose though, am I going to focus on it or am I going to focus on my goal? Am I going to focus on that or am I going to be thinking, what can I do today to get me closer to chairman, whatever the number is? Ask yourself. That's reason. Now, when somebody starts to tell you what's wrong with your marketing plan, when they start telling you what's wrong with the company, when they start telling you what's wrong with network marketing, you got the ability to change the subject. You can choose. Don't spend any time thinking of that. Now, will they tell you this? Is there things wrong with the company? Absolutely. There's something wrong with everything. Any dumbbell can find it. But there's also something right about everything. It takes a little bit of wisdom, a bit of intelligence to figure out what's right. So let's use our reasoning factor and understand whatever's going on in here is a choice that we make. Be in charge of you. You're God's highest form of creation. There's nothing that will touch you. You be in charge of you. Don't let anybody else be in charge. You be in charge. You be a model for everybody you bring into the business. And understand this, if you bring them in, they're watching you. And if you're complaining, they're pretty soon going to be gone. You know why? Because that complaining isn't going to take them where they want to go. It may be unconscious. It may not even be a conscious choice, but that's where they're at. And I want you to think, really think of what you're capable of. Reason. I have the ability to choose. I can choose my goal. I can choose what I'm going to write on my card. I can choose whether I'm going to wake up in the morning and think, what can I do today to get there today? What can I do today? It's up to you. You know, there's an old gold card. I've had it for a long time. This is a Born Rich. You were born rich gold card. You were born rich. You can go to our site. Just go to Proctor Gallagher and or bobproctor.com. You can download the book Born Rich. And it's a step-by-step formula on how to get right to the top of the chairman's list. You can download it for nothing. We'll give it to you. And you can't put too much good out. So you got the ability to choose. Now, what did we talk about? We have perception. We can dictate how we see things. We can dictate how we see it. There's something good in everything. Nothing's all bad, nothing's all good. The truth is, everything just is. Everything just is. All right? So you have the ability to choose, you have perception, you have memory, and you have the will. You can focus. Now, what are the other faculties? There's two more. Do you know what they are? I'll tell you one. It's the imagination. Greatest nation in the world. The imagination. You've got the ability, through the proper use of your imagination, to go anywhere you want to go. Napoleon Hill said, the imagination is the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force that the world has ever known. Now think of that. The imagination is the most marvelous, miraculous, inconceivably powerful force the world's ever known. And you have one. You can go anywhere with your imagination. That's how we built the phone. That's how we got this book. That's how we got these little eye plugs. I think they were the greatest things in the world when I first got them. Do you know, I remember the first ballpoint pen I ever saw. It was at the end of the Second World War. You're saying, God, you are still alive and you were there? Yeah, I was there. And my grandfather came to live with us at the end of the Second World War. I was 11 years old. That was in 1945. Do the figure and do the math. I've been around for a while. He saw an advertisement for a ballpoint pen, and he wrote away and he got it. It was the first ballpoint pen I'd ever seen. Up until then, you had to dip a pen in ink, or you had to load up the cartridge in ink, and the damn things were always leaking, so you had ink all over the place. Now, those ballpoint pens weren't very good, because when you would write, they'd skip all over the place. The ink wasn't flowing freely. They were the first ballpoint pens. They were bad, but they were a new idea. Somebody had used their imagination, and they thought, why do we have to keep dipping the pen in ink? Why don't we load the pen? And that's when the first ballpoint pen come along. Think of it. The ballpoint pen is a great invention. Now, they've probably been around as long as you have. They were around when you were born. But they weren't around when I was born. I remember when they first come out. Now, think about this. It was the act of someone's imagination. I Am Academy is nothing but the manifestation of Chris Terry's imagination. That's exactly what it is. I've talked to him about it. I've talked to the man that he phoned and talked to when he said he was going to do this. People thought he was crazy. There's people who still think he's crazy. He's so crazy, it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Now think of this for a moment. Do you know that your imagination can cause you to see yourself already in the place of your goal? And you know something else? I'll tell you something. When you write your goal on a card, you better see yourself as already being there. Goethe, the German philosopher, he said, before you can do something, you first must be something. You got to be it. So you start to walk and talk and act like you're already that chairman. Now you'll say, well, people laugh at me. That's their problem. It's not yours. They cannot see what you see. With your imagination, you see yourself up at the front, leading a great big group. You see yourself with an enormous organization all over the world, every week earning tens of thousands of dollars. Can you do that? Yes, you really can. You can see all that in your imagination. I don't care if you just started with I am yesterday. You have your imagination, you can see that happening. Go and ask Alec. He'll tell you. He was in a meeting that I was in 10 years ago. He didn't understand any of this. Man, the guy adopted it and he's taken off like a rocket. You can too. You're capable of making just magic happen with your imagination. The imagination is a mental faculty out of which visions arise. Visions are great. Absolutely phenomenal. And what's the last one? The last one, I think, is the best one. The truth is there's no best one. They're all great. The last one enables me to pick up vibrations and translate it in my head. If I'm around you sometime, just come and say, what am I like? I'll tell you exactly what you're like. I can be so accurate I could scare you. Understand this, everything that goes on the inside shows on the outside. You're nothing but a mass of energy and a very high speed of vibration. Now your mind has been programmed. You have a paradigm in there. Somebody else built it. It's a program someone else wrote. They were writing the code for how you're going to live. You did not create the image that's controlling your life right now. Odds are somebody else created it. It was created genetically. When you were born, you looked like your relatives. Why? Because of the programming in the subjective mind. It controls the form of the body, the size of the body, the color, how it acts. The body is nothing but an instrument of the mind. And understand this, the programming in the mind is passed from one generation to the next. Every now and then somebody comes along like that. It's all over. They've changed the program. I changed the programming in our family. I never went to school. I went to high school for 2 months. My son one time did research on our heritage, on our genealogy. No one in our family ever went to school, as far back as we could go. Do you know what? I just changed one question with my kids. I didn't ask them if they were going to go. I asked them where they were going to go. And like that, they've all gone through school. One question improved the whole breed. Now think about that for a moment. What questions are you asking yourself? What are you capable of doing? Do you know you've got a mental faculty that can pick up vibration and read it? Do you know that thought is energy? Thought is vibration. You think on a frequency. Just the same as your phone operates on a frequency, you operate on a frequency. You think on a frequency. You can be with another person and you can pick up their vibration, but you don't have to be with them. They could be on the other side of the world and you can pick up their vibration. Think of this for a moment. Time and space is only good for our physical benefit. If I phone your number, I'm sitting here in Toronto and you could be in Yokohama. As soon as I press send, bang, your phone rings. Why? Because your phone's no farther away than I am. We're on the same frequency. It's operating like radios or television or phones. We do. It's on a frequency. Now you've got the ability through your intuitive factor to pick up another person's energy, and you're doing it all the time. It's just that you may not be aware that you're doing it and you're not utilizing it for your own benefit. If something's troubling somebody, you will feel it. Feeling is the language of vibration. Feeling is the language of the subconscious. When you say, I feel a certain way, what you're really doing is telling the people the vibration you're in. Now, what you want to do is get that you can tune into this energy. I'm very good at it. Now, I'm not good at it by accident. I'm good at it because I decided to get good at it. And that's what I'd recommend you do. We're all capable of getting really good at it. It's a decision. What I say about reason, you had a choice. I decided I was going to become very tuned in to the energy. So I could pick up your energy and read you like a book. Now let me go over all of them. We have perception, reason, memory, intuition, the will, and imagination. I hope you wrote them down. I really hope you did. I'll do it one more time. You have perception, imagination, the will, reason, intuition, and memory. Every one of them are perfect because you're perfect. There's perfection in you. They just need to be exercised. If you want a stronger body, exercise it. If you want a stronger mind, exercise it. You cannot study too much of this. You can only go to the level your awareness will permit. By studying, you expand your level of conscious awareness. Now get this. You can earn a lot of money without expanding your level of awareness, but you're never going to enjoy it. You got to have the awareness of how to enjoy life, with or without money. You've got to have the awareness of how to go right to the top of an organization. You've got to have the awareness of how to build a great organization, and you are capable of doing that. Just the same as I am, same as anybody. I sat down in a little den, in a room, in a house on Maplewood Lane in Glenview, Illinois. In 1973, I had just left the Nightingale Conant Corporation. I went there in 1968 until 73. In 1973, I sat down and I said, I'm going to build a company that operates all over the world. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do that. Today, Procter Gallagher Institute operates in 88 countries. The last seminar we streamed into 119 countries. I only see our company growing. I see us doing more good with more people, more often. What are you going to do with your life? Where are you going? Can you sit down and decree exactly where you're going? You can, but have you? Have you got your goal written on your card? Come here. You know what you want to know? God loves you. God is omnipresent. God is everywhere. The phenomenal power, this power flows to and through you. And as it flows into your consciousness, it has no form. You can create the form you want, and that's what's going to happen in your world. You can literally create the life you want. I think you've got a phenomenal company. I'm particularly impressed with the people at the top of your company. They're really good people. They are really, really good people. You want to go to the top, you got to be a good person. Otherwise, you won't get there. How do you be good? Help as many people as you can. How do you do that? You start by helping yourself. Become a more effective human being. Do a better job today than you did yesterday. Now, if you get down and you're a little troubled, you may have a problem. I was asked yesterday by Mark Lack. He said, do you have anything to do if you have a bit of a problem? I said, I have a quote. And I use it. And it's a good quote. It says, do your work. Not just your work and no more, but a little more for the lavishing's sake. That little more which is worth all the rest. And if you suffer as you must, and you doubt as you must, do your work. Put your heart into it, and the sky will clear. And out of your very doubt and suffering will be born the supreme joy of life. Dean Briggs said that. I'll repeat it once more. You might want to adopt it. Anytime I have a little bit of a ripple, things aren't going right, I repeat this. So do your work. Not just your work and no more, but a little more for the lavishing's sake. That little more which is worth all the rest. And if you suffer as you must, and you doubt as you must, do your work. Put your heart into it, and the sky will clear. And then out of your very doubt and suffering will be born the supreme joy of life. I want to thank you for your attention. And I look forward to spending time with you again in the very near future. This is Bob Proctor. Thank you.